Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm your host, Myki Angeline. We are here with our live Front and Center podcast series for the Women's International Music Network. This one, I'm going to try to keep it as professional as possible because I love Chasta so much. And I knew I had to get her on the podcast. We met last year's Aftershock Festival in Sacramento, California, Media Tent, because that's how we roll. Fell in love with her like instant, like second one, and we've just been buddies, especially knowing that you, Chester, right? Because I'm in Sacramento, you're in the Bay. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. You didn't tell that story right.
Uh-oh.
We met because I was in love with you, and I sought you out because I recognized on social media and everything you're doing that you were a rock star. And I was like, that's the girl I got to meet. So I walked over. I was like, hi, I'm Chasta. I have to know you because you're amazing. So thank you for having me on your podcast.
You're so, actually, I do remember you saying you've seen me on social media.
I was stalking you. I was properly stalking you on Instagram.
That is so crazy to me that people do that, especially for me. And it was like, once I looked you up, because we were able to connect, I think, the 3 or the 4 days that I was there.
Yeah.
And once I looked you up, I'm like, how do I not already know this amazing goddess of a woman? Because your radio, okay, you're program director and on-air talent at 107.7 The Bone in San Francisco. You're also a podcast producer. You've been in TV. You're a voiceover actress. I'm like, how do I not already know this amazing human being?
I love you. Keep talking.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty because I know we're going to get carried away.
Oh, yeah.
You've been in this industry for how long now?
In April, it'll be 21 years.
Wow.
Started in Oklahoma City at Rock 100.5 The Cat. And I just got really lucky to get that gig when I was in college. And once I got the radio bug, I did not let go. Nothing was ever going to kick me out, no matter what. And it's a tough industry, but I've been a tough bitch the whole time. So I'm hanging on.
I tell you, and we're going to dive into that. So from Oklahoma, then you came to LA, California.
Correct,
were there for about 5 years or so, then came up north and been up here ever since in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
What has the change been like for you, if you can even remember so far back, from radio in Oklahoma that long ago to doing all of that in the LA area, which is really one of like the 4 spots you do if you're trying to get noticed in any kind of entertainment industry, then coming up here to San Francisco? I mean, you hit like the big cities.
It was really a stroke of very, very good luck and having people in my life that loved me and took care of me along the way. So the quick version of that story is I was in college and I loved The Cat and I listened to it every day. Huge heritage rock station in Oklahoma City, just, flamethrower signal. Goes everywhere. And so I called up one day asking how to buy Aerosmith tickets because I was throwing my mom a bachelorette party for she was marrying my stepdad. And I wanted it to be at Aerosmith. So I called in to the jock, Greg Zubek, who, by the way, is still there. And he fell in love with my laugh, thought it was funny, offered me an internship over the phone. Fun fact, the university I went to did not support an internship, but that was not going to stop me. So I made up paperwork. I faked the whole thing. And I went in the next day, accepted the internship with all that fake paperwork and all that. And that was 21 years ago. And I got that gig as an intern. And then one day a girl didn't show up and I got my first shot on the air. I was standing at the copy machine and my boss walked up and goes, say something. And I turned around and I went, do you want these papers? And he goes, that'll work. Come with me. He walked me into the studio, 10 o'clock in the morning, in the middle of the week, first time on the air, and showed me how to turn on and off the mic and stop the music and start it. And that's all I knew. And I puked in the trash can and then I went on the air.
Wow.
So that was how I got into radio. And the adrenaline that comes with live radio, especially when you don't know what the F you're doing, it just takes your whole body over. It's a completely different stage, so to speak. And I fell in love with it. And after that shift, even though I was atrocious, I'm sure, and I have air checks that are in my attic that I'll never listen to, but he liked something and he was like, okay, I'm going to give you a weekend shift and we're going to work this out. And that's what we did. And pretty soon after that, I got really lucky. They launched a new country station. They put me on a morning show with 2 other people. And so I went from just getting into radio to being on a morning show, which like no one gets to do. I just got really lucky. The time was just in my favor. And so when I was in Oklahoma, I always knew I was going to Hollywood. Like since I was 5, I always knew I was going to Hollywood. So I gained all of this experience. I was hell-bent on getting my degree at the university in communications. And then I had accidentally fallen into radio, but I was like, I'm not going to Hollywood. So we're going to go figure this out. So I went to LA and I was there about 6 months, and a PD from the cluster in Oklahoma City got the boss gig at ESPN radio in LA. Crazy. Calls me up. He's like, hey, guess what? Coming to LA, you need to be back in radio. Cause I had left radio. I was an assistant for an actor at the time. And I was like, I had a huge accent. And I was like, yeah, are you kidding me? Like I was straight off the turnip truck. I mean, I had serious accent. He was like, that's okay. We'll work it out. It's fine. We'll make it happen. And sure enough, he got me back into radio. And then it just kind of went from there. It was crazy.
Wow. It's
Crazy.
like it was all laid out for you and you just had to walk the path.
It feels like that. It felt like radio found me first, and I fell in love with it. It's always been my great love affair. I say that all the time, and I think people think that's like, oh, a cheeky way to say I like radio. But truly, I felt like it was written in the stars for me. You know, radio, I call her a she. She found me, and we fell in love. And then I walked away to go to LA, and she found me again. And so after that second time, I was like, no, this is my path. This is what I'm supposed to do. And I've just worked my ass off ever since. And then I met my husband in LA.
So is that what brought you to San Francisco?
So my husband is a professional drummer. I was out on the Sunset Strip. He's fantastic. He was playing a gig on the Sunset Strip at the Viper Room, and I had a nationally syndicated talk show at the time. And in that talk show, I had a local music feature, because that has been the one thing that has been consistent with me for all these years, is I've always supported local musicians, even from the word go. And so we were out on the Strip looking for bands, and we heard his band, and we were like, holy hell, that band's amazing. So I gave him my card, and he called me up and the rest is history. So then we dated for like 3 years, and then I finally just moved up here. And
so love brought you to the Bay.
It did, yes. And kept me, because we're married now with a beautiful 6-year-old.
Yes, beautiful 6-year-old. And so then, all right. So then how did you find radio in the Bay?
Okay, so I worked down at a traffic news information-based company in Los Angeles. And I knew for a while that we were really serious and we were going to get engaged. Like, it was the writing was on the walls. And frankly, gas at the time went over $5 a gallon. And we were like, this I-5 6 hours a weekend or 12 hours a weekend drive is not going to happen anymore. So it was just, it was like, okay, something's got to give. So I talked to my boss down there, and I said, I really am considering moving to, San Francisco if there's any connections. And there was an opening for a traffic reporter. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll get back into radio in that way. And so I moved up, and I think I had a 2-week span of not working. And then I got back into radio that way. And I just worked and worked and worked. And then one day, again, this is a theme. One day, my boss at the traffic network was like, I am not going to move forward with this company. The company had split ways. And she said, Lamont Tonelli, who I'm on with now, still to this day, this was 10 years ago. She was in management, didn't want to give up benefits and whatnot. So she just said, I'm passing the torch to you. You're going to be their girl. And they fought for me to do that, because there was competition. It's not like there wasn't, but they fought for me. They liked me as well. I worked really hard. And so they brought me over, and I've been at the Bone ever since. That was 2010.
I love that catchphrase too. 107.7 The Bone. And you refer to your listeners as boneheads.
Boneheads. It's always been that way. The bonehead family is what I call them.
Right? Yeah. It's insanity. It's like, so the difference, obviously, 21-year span.
Yeah.
We're not even just talking equipment. We're talking the birth of social media.
Oh, sure.
Because
Absolutely.
Nowadays, on-air talent is expected to also have a social media presence, not just for their solo personally, but for the station.
Yeah, that was a major change, because back in the day when you did mornings, you could literally roll out of bed, brush your teeth, and get on the air. You didn't see anyone but your producer. And you always love your producer, but I'm not putting makeup for you. Excuse me. So that was the case. I mean, God, until a decade ago, maybe, when really MySpace turned into Facebook, and it really became a thing.
Oh my God, MySpace.
Right? I know MySpace. I just dated myself. Hi. Anyway, It was at
Hi.
that moment where it was like, oh, now you're going live. Now there's all these things. And that's just grown. So now every day, no matter what, I always look my best because I could be on camera at any time. And now I do host a TV show. So it really is the case. But you got to look presentable. There's no more rolling out of bed for radio. At least not for
No,
me.
you have to have a face for radio. It's
You
like
do.
I think, for me, because we both are in radio, I probably should fess up for those who might not know. And before
Everybody knows, honey. Everybody knows you.
I'm just saying, okay, before we do this, also look, I have to show up because Tracy Rhodes is in the comments.
Oh, bingo, boneheads rock. I did something once how I got my job at the record label Capitol Records
Yes.
in California and wound up in Atlanta at Capricorn Records, and the rest is history.
Look
Played
at that.
49 years later on my own studio, own my own studio and label. Tracy, that is phenomenal.
Right?
Good on you, sister. That's when
Yes.
I always say this. That's when you hear the universe talking to you and you work with her. You know what? Like,
Yes.
there are times in your life where you're trying to get down a road and it's just roadblock after roadblock and you're trying and you're not winning. You need to sometimes stop and listen because there could be a real reason as to why. But when the floodgates start to open and opportunities start to go, that's when you just got to roll with it. You got to roll with that momentum. And I've always thought that way. It's true.
I've learned to develop that way of thinking over the years. I've been in the music industry working since 2007. A lot of it indie based. We discussed this off air.
Yeah.
You've been in it professionally for 21. I've been in it professionally I'm going on 3 years.
Yeah.
But I came in with 10 plus years of experience doing everything from podcasting to red carpet interviews to live interviews at, I showed you my little reel, right?
I love it. Yes, yes.
This will be my 13th year going to the NAMM convention.
Fantastic.
So, we're hosting our 11th annual She Rocks Awards through the Women's International Music Network, which of course I'm going to touch on that before we end this podcast. But I attribute before I used to be with being the A-type personality and being a Leo.
Yeah.
When I want something, I'm just going to get it.
Yep.
And for the longest time, I would just get it. But after a while, you realize you might not always know to the full capacity of what it is you actually want.
Yeah.
Having the desire, but then having the full picture are two different things. So sometimes the no is the redirection to the right way.
That's it.
I've learned to embrace that so I don't take it so personally and get so butthurt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure especially as a woman in this industry.
Oh, man.
I mean, it's as tired as it sounds to ask the question. It's 2023 and we still are represented less than 9% across the board in this industry in any field, and some of them even less. So for you, did you find, because it doesn't sound like you found doors closing because of your gender so much as it was serendipitous to be in it, but were there obstacles you found there?
I mean, I give you obviously all the fluffy side of everything.
Okay.
And how everything worked, but there was a lot of struggle. I mean, it's just being taken seriously at a conference table when you're in an important room and you're the only girl. Sometimes you just have to know that. I've never woken up in the morning and went, okay, I'm the only girl today. I got to be that badass bitch. I don't do it like that, but I live my life that way. I don't look at it as male versus female. I look at it as I need to be strong. I need to be confident. I need to work hard and believe in myself. And if I do all those things, then gender doesn't matter. And I've always had that attitude. I was raised by a very, very, very strong woman. So she raised me that way and she took care of us. And never bitched about it, never complained, never even let us know that it was tough. So she put that in me. But, certainly there's been moments I've been asking contract negotiations over the 21 years, well, don't you have a husband? Doesn't he make enough? How much does he make? Things like that, where it's like, you wouldn't ask a guy, don't you have a wife? Don't you have a fiance? It's those moments where you hope that people aren't looking at your gender, but oops, it slipped out. You are, those things.
Yeah. I've worked jobs that weren't in music, in management, and it's always a big issue for females is the whole being pregnant and not being able to work.
Sure.
And then if you're pregnant and have a baby, maybe you don't want to come back.
Yeah.
But that's conscious and unconscious bias that still exists today. So, it's.
Well, I'll answer, it's funny that you say that in particular. I'm sitting in my home studio
I
That
love
was
it, by the way.
Thank you. It is very cush. I love it. But it's nice to have a drummer husband who's an audio tech and does sound engineering. But
Oh, love it.
I know it's so great. You can borrow him. He'll go up and help you.
I need to come down anyways. You have a room for me.
Oh yeah, I do. It's yours anytime.
See?
But what was I saying? Going back to man versus woman. Like whenever I got pregnant, what you just said was in my head without me even realizing it, because I thought, okay, I'm pregnant and then I'm going to take this time off for maternity leave. But in the same breath, and I'm a little embarrassed to say this because I think people will judge me. Some mothers will judge my thought. I was like, but what about the show, my other baby? Right? Because
Right.
radio is it's not an industry where you go, okay, I do all of this work at a desk with all this paperwork, and I can train someone to do it and they can take it over while I'm gone and I can walk away. When you change a radio show, the chemistry completely changes.
Completely.
So I was like, I can't take off 5 months or whatever, this is not going to work. What am I going to do? So my husband and I talked it out, and I was like, and I'm not breastfeeding in front of Lamont Tonelli. Like, it's not happening. So we were like, okay, we're going to build, I think you would understand.
Yes.
We're going to build a home studio. So I took 4 weeks off, truly 4 weeks off. And then I came back on the air, but from home. And
Smart.
that was in
Beautiful.
2016. And then when I went back to work, 4 months later or whatever it was, then this sat empty except for my podcasting. But then COVID happened, and boom, I had a wonderful place that I could continue to work with no problem. And that was such a blessing.
You are so innovative. There it is.
That was an accidental innovation. But that really was in my head. And balancing motherhood with a job that's just not traditional in any way, shape, or form has been tricky. Finding that balance, and I'm not sure that really exists, but it's just an everyday shuffle of going, okay, in this 10-minute block, what's getting priority? How do I do this? What do I put over here? It's a dance for sure. Because of my hours too.
Speaking of dance, we know that in this industry, because we're focusing on the music industry, especially if you're working how you are, which you have a radio show you have a couple of radio shows
I
you
have
do.
2 radio shows and a
You're
TV
either and a TV show. You're either a cost or a profit to the company. If you don't own it yourself, you're
Yep.
either a cost or a profit. So how do you, and you mentioned something key that I believe in too, which is supporting your local music scene.
Yeah.
That is what I was heavily invested in, which is how I came up into what I'm doing. And now I'm with COVID, it's just my work schedule has made it hard to do night shows because I'm up at 3 a.m.
Yes.
But I need to find this balance because I miss supporting local music. So where do you find your balance to do what you need to do to succeed in the corporate lane while remaining authentic and supporting your community base?
Yeah, that is such a super good question. And it's taken many, many years, and I'll go through all of it. So, when I first started at the Cat in Oklahoma City, I was doing a local show, and that became a theme forever. Anytime I had an opportunity to do a local show, I would do that. And then Soundwaves TV has been an entity in the Bay Area this will be our 40th year. I came on board 5 years ago. And before me, they were doing more of like MTV style. They would play anything. It was a really fun sort of reality TV meets music and that whole mismatch. But when I came on and they were like, what do you want to do? I was like, we need to do what you're doing because it's perfect, but let's just infuse local. And so we did that. Look at that. There you go. So we did that. And we really have focused on the Bay Area music scene because here in the Bay, and much like Sacramento as well, thriving rock scene in particular, there's generations of music that come through the Bay Area. And sometimes, a lot of times, what happens here will then, it will, I was going to say infect, in a good way, the music throughout the rest of the country and sometimes even the world. So I really thought, my God, what a perfect place to really support music. So for 7 years, I asked every boss that I had here in the Bay Area, I want to do a local show, want to do a local music show. And it didn't work out for me because it was a corporate entity. But about a year and a half ago, whenever I became the boss at the Bone, I decided I'm going to do it. Now I'm asking my boss, and I'm going to say yes. And it wasn't quite that easy. I did have to get the trust of corporate, and I did have to explain to them the importance of community and how much it does affect the Bay Area. And those conversations turned into support And I do work for a corporation, but I'm so lucky that the corporate team that I answer to as my bosses are nothing but supportive, and they see my vision and they see my passion for it. So I launched Soundwaves FM, which is a local show that happens on the weekends on the Bone. So Soundwaves TV is now the TV version of the local music show. Soundwaves FM is now the FM. So we support on TV and in radio, and we also have a podcast. So it's like this round robin of local support, just trying to push any way we can for the local musician, the artist, the Bay Area band, anything we can do. And when we say Bay Area, we mean, like basically Northern California.
Right.
So we're hitting it from all angles.
I love that. I love that so much. Oh my gosh. We have, I didn't divulge, but I work for Odyssey. I work at 98 Rock. I'm on the air on the weekends, and I do a lot of footwork during the week on top of producing podcasts, on top of producing commercial spots. In fact, I just interviewed the president and CEO of our Greater Sacramento Urban League this morning. That's going to air this weekend, right before the public file for our DEI, especially for Black History Month.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And so thank you. And so before COVID, a little bit before COVID, 98 Rock was famous with what they call local licks.
Right.
But with COVID and money being nothing, it's like a lot of things went by the wayside, and local licks was one of them. And I'm hoping within the next year, so we can bring, if it isn't local licks, something back to give back to the community, because
I would love to support you any way I can.
Because we're still coming up out of the trenches with money being the issue and trying to build back up and rebuild some of our stations. And it's like, I'm learning, because when I started with them, it was still Entercom. And it was right in the thick of COVID. We're talking November 2020.
That's when you started?
Yes.
That's wild.
Which, talk about serendipitous, they let go of 65% of their staff. But somebody that was a key component was leaving the company, and there was the opening, and I knew people that were throwing me bones for like 5 years of here's a job here's a job opening, and this one fits. And it was early mornings. It's running a board for a show. I'm like, whatever gets you in. Yeah. And I heard you say that in the beginning of this interview. Whatever gets your foot in the door, get in the door, because you will prove yourself from that point on. And here I am 2 years later. And even then, I didn't start out. Here's what's crazy. I loved how you said when you first started it, you threw together this bogus paperwork. And I'm like, yeah, that's how I got into the music industry. Because in 2011, I was asked by somebody in LA if I did music reviews. And I lied and said, absolutely.
Absolutely, I do. Yeah.
Never in my life have I ever done. And this is what I did. You know what I did? This was 2011. I looked at articles like Rolling Stone, New York Times, and I looked at the way and the format and how they wrote their articles. And I figured out how to give it my own twist. And that's exactly what I did.
That's amazing. And that's what you have
literally
to do.
faking it till you make it.
And that's it. You look at these moments where, going back to what we were talking about with the universe and opening up to you, you see those moments, but that's just the sliver of getting in, and then everything's on you. Every room I've ever walked into, I'm like, what are you doing? How do you do that? Will you teach me? I mean, editing, any kind of building a website, working on WordPress, anything you can think of, how to run tech equipment, microphones, lighting, all of it. I have always gotten my notepad out, written it down, every tiny little thing I could in any department, promotions, traffic and continuity, running the commercials at the station. I've literally done it all, except being a market manager in sales. I've done every job there is in radio.
Wow. Congratulations.
And I've always, that's been my mission, is to understand how all of the pieces of this jigsaw puzzle come together. That's the key in any industry. Any room you're in, soak up everything.
Yes, that's how you become valuable.
That's right.
That's like how you have to either become, like I said, let's bring it back to it. You're either a profit or you're a cost.
Yep.
You can either spend your time complaining about what you're missing and what you don't have and how you're not being supported, or you can become what you need.
That's right. I have no patience for a non-work ethic. If I think somebody has a hint of laziness, I don't have any time for you. And that may sound harsh, but I just don't. You
don't have the time.
Get in. Nobody has the time. You got to get in. You got to learn. You got to do it on your own. You can't expect people to do it for you. What did I say as soon as we came on here? I've never been on StreamYard as a format. What did I say to you? Can you teach me? That is my mindset.
I
I
will totally teach you.
I want to
I will come and spend the day with you in your beautiful home, and we'll pull it up, and I'll go and I'll log in from there, and I'll go, look, I'll bring my laptop. This is how it works. It's an amazing tool.
and then I'll give you my drummer audio tech husband, and he can help you with any of your needs.
See, it's like when I posted when I launched my second podcast in the midst of 2020 before I got the radio job because
Yeah.
I wanted to get back in podcasting. I spent money and I did an online, it was a podcasting um shoot.
Like a seminar or a
It was
training?
like a convention thingy, but it was all online for 2 weeks
Oh,
worth.
nice. I'm the
Classes
king.
every day.
Yes,
Right?
love it.
And it was an investment in myself. I spent like $400 on this 2-week course.
Yep.
Because I knew, I go, this is going to take me somewhere, whether it's podcasting, radio, whatever it is. And
Networking, whatever.
and I'm so thankful to be involved. When we talked earlier about what it's like being a female in this industry, and a lot of what you have to do is surround yourself with people who support you and you can support them back. Be it, and it still can be non-female, but it helps when you're in a room full of like-minded, like-viewed folks. So
Mhm.
being with the Women's International Music Network, being with on the board and working with Girls Rock Sacramento here in Sacramento,
Mhm.
when you can see and be a part of greatness, positivity, motivation, hardworking,
Mhm.
you stay on that path. Like you
Absolutely.
said, to not have time for people who don't work is because if they're not working, then you're working for them, and now you've wasted your time.
That's the thing I've
And
talked
that's
about
it.
on my podcast is it in life in general, and this is professionally and personally, you have to remember that you become the 5 people you hang out with most. So you have to look at who's around you and what are they contributing to your life. If you're the most successful, hardest working, all the things in that group of people, then who is pulling you up? Who is the person that's inspiring you? Who are you looking up to? If everyone else is looking up to you, then they're pulling you back. And there's nothing wrong with being friends with a million people, but I'm saying you need to surround yourself with people that inspire you. They connect with you in order to help you get your goals met and vice versa. And I think of one of those people as social media and the time I spend online, because we spend so much time on social and online. That's got to be a positive space that inspires. I don't have time for lame duck people, and I don't have time for lame duck social. Like I can't hashtag I can't.
This is where we just became best friends because I learned that phrase probably 13 years ago from a friend. And this is how I always would share it is, you are the 5 people you surround yourself with. So if you have friends like mine, raise your glass. But if not, then raise your standards.
Yes, exactly. What way better than I said it. Exactly.
No, it's the same, right?
Perfect.
Because
Same.
look around. The 5 people you spend the most time with is your future.
It is. It's where you're going. It's,
Yes.
and I
And
have done,
where you're stuck.
or where you're stuck. And then I wanted to make a point too to what you were saying about being surrounded. In the industry, I don't have the access, unfortunately, always, nor do you, to be in a room full of supportive women. I have had wonderful women in my life, but not many of them in the industry. We had at the Bone, God rest her soul, Dana Keys, one of my dearest friends. She was the only other girl. It was me and her at the Bone for years and years. And then she passed away last March,
Oh,
almost a
I'm
year
so
ago.
sorry.
Awful.
I'm
But
sorry.
after she passed away, then I was the only female until I just hired Nikki Black back onto afternoons in December. So now I've got that female energy, and I'm talking about on the air. Behind the scenes, there's rock stars. I have Mari and Andrea, who just like literally are my spine and help me up every day. But the guys, if you have a lot of men in your life, just find the right ones. And what I mean by that, the ones who are going to support you. I'll give you a good story on this, talking about contracts and being the female asking for money and equality and all those things. I have a dear friend who knew I was going into a contract one time, and he said, "Do you know how much I make?" Because we had very similar style jobs. He did very similar things to what I did. And he said, "Do you know how much I make?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "I'm going to tell you because you need to ask for this." And I said,
Ooh.
"Amazing." So he told me what he made. I went into that contract and I said, "Look, so and so told me that I could tell you that I know how much he makes. And all I'm asking is for equivalent. He does the similar job that I do. I know what he makes. So that's all I'm asking." And you know what? I was heard. And there was part of me,
Wow. Good
I
for
really,
you and good for that man
yes,
who knew better and knew your worth and helped you with that.
and offered it up, saw
Yes.
this opportunity to be an ally to me. in our
Love it.
industry. It was an incredible moment, and it worked, and I was heard just like that. And I thought, wow, like all it took was a guy standing up beside me and going, she's worthy of everything that every man in here is worthy of. And
Absolutely.
I was blown away by that. And I struggled with it because what I'll tell you, it was hard because I never that what do they say? Ugh, don't pull the female card, right? Don't pull the woman card. And so there was a part of me where I was like, am I doing that right now? And then after a few days of like really percolating on that, I went, F it, I'm doing that right now. Even if it's a card to pull or whatever anybody would say. I'm like, it's been a hot minute in radio. It's time. And I did. And I'm glad I did. I really am. Ooh, from Brooklyn. Absolutely love your thoughts. Dee Dee, I've headlined at CBGB's. What?
Wow.
Wow, that is amazing.
Get it, DD. And thank you
Rad, Dee Dee.
for watching and tuning in. Everyone listening, throw in your comments, have your questions, whatever. We'll post that up here.
I love it.
So a little more on contracts before we go elsewhere.
Yeah.
You have, besides, I mean, that obviously was a bone thrown at you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have like a tip, especially for women trying to negotiate a contract, whether in radio or in music in general?
Don't take the first thing they offer at all. Get somebody, maybe you can't afford a lawyer, but you can afford someone to just take a peek over it, because there's a lot of verbiage in contracts. I've learned over 21 years, there's a lot of verbiage in contracts that are really vague and meant to confuse and meant to just protect the company and things like that. And a lot of them are even boilerplates, but they're workable. And you need to know your worth. If they want you that much, they'll work with you. And maybe you don't come to terms on the exact amount of money, but push back. Don't ever take it just the first time. Push back, ask what you want, but then also think of other things that could be valuable to you, whatever that means. Is that bridge tolls? I'm thinking in the Bay Area. Is that help with bridge tolls? Does that help with parking? Because parking is outrageous. Is that more vacation to balance out the pay structure? Whatever, bonus structures. You always need to have a bonus structure if you're on
bonus endorsements. Yeah.
Endorsements, those add up. So, just really don't be too eager. You can be excited, but don't be so eager that you undercut yourself. Take some time, take a breath, have somebody watch over it, have other peers that you trust in the industry look over it. That was another thing I have to be careful. I don't want to give anyone's names away, but I had another peer of mine look over my contract, and he was like, no, this was my bonus structure, so it should be your bonus structure. And he mapped it out for me because I wouldn't have known. It was my first time to ever even have a bonus structure. So, don't be afraid to ask those questions. It's fine. And if people are good humans, then they'll help you.
This is true. You can ask, if you've got a mentor too working within the industry with you, you can ask about that. You can ask about, is it a flat rate or a percentage when it comes to endorsements and bonuses? You can, there's nothing, never hurts to ask. I think the biggest fear comes for people when they fear that they'll be passed over if they don't say yes right away.
Right. And you have to know you might. You have to know it's
possible. And that's the risk you take.
But that's the risk you take. But if you're banking on yourself, it's a worthy risk.
Right.
Because I've always worked since I was 14 years old, bussing tables. I've always worked. I've never not had a job. And most of the time I've had 2 or 3. So I know my hustle is such that whatever happens, I'll figure it out. So that gives you the confidence to go in and go, nope, this is what I'm worth. This is what other peers make. This is what I want, take it or leave it. And you don't have to be an ass about it, but you do need to be confident, but you got to back that confidence up with actual skills and hard work.
And you know where that comes from? It's something I use all the time, and it's, we teach people how to treat us.
That's right. Absolutely.
So you can find ways to be stern without being a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
I mean, truth. Yeah.
At least on the professional, when it comes to your contracts or, when it comes to negotiating your salaries. You can show your worth and show that this is how valuable I am. And I need to know that you see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And if it can't go this high, let's find this, or maybe we'll find it over here, but let's come to where we both can work with this, because you already know what I'm worth. You've already seen me do my thing. That's the other thing too, is showing what you can do versus what is on a res. Cause we just proved that we've lied on our resumes before. So it's
Everyone
like
does, don't they?
everybody. And I learned there was one short stint where I was unemployed because the company had massive layoffs. This was years ago. And I'm like you, I've been working since I was in school.
Yeah,
So, being laid off, I took it personal.
sure.
And I was encouraged right away, get on unemployment. And that's when I discovered music. That's what's crazy is I went on unemployment and then I had the cushion and no stress. And I tried the music scene
Love
and
it.
working. But I learned when I tried to go back and find a job after 6 months, somewhere between that 3 and 6 month window, employers consider you no experience.
That's so
If
crazy.
you are like 3 to 6 months solid, haven't worked, it's like starting over again.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have to know that you're only as good as the last thing you
Your
did.
last
And even
thing,
then,
right.
you mentioned going on maternity leave and leaving a show in the public eye on social media. Once you're gone, people forget about you.
That's true. It's even worse now. It
People
gets worse by
forget
the day.
about you.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of, it can be stressful if you let it, but it can be exciting and rewarding if you
Mhm.
let it.
And it
I'm
can,
like you. It's so exciting and rewarding.
yeah,
I could
and it
wake up
can
and do
keep
this
your
every
game up.
day.
Yeah. It can keep your game up, if you
Yeah,
look at it as the one thing that everyone needs to realize, because there's a lot of egos in this industry too, in music, radio, TV, all of it. There's a lot of egos, but I think it's important to remember you can always be replaced too. So you got to keep your
completely.
chops up. You can't become complacent and get cozy in your chair and just lay back and be like, I'm here, I've arrived, look at me. Like that's never ever a thing in my
Nope.
life. No matter
Nope.
if my ratings are number one or they're not, it doesn't matter because I don't buy into the bullshit. It's all the same to me. I get up every day and I deserve to win. I have to give credit where credit is due on that. I just had a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I had the most incredible conversation with a man named Brian Phillips. If you know anything about Cumulus Radio, he is at the tippity top of the family tree here at Cumulus. But he's the most successful. He used to run MTV. I mean, this is like,
Oh, yes. Okay.
yeah, big time guy. But he's so accessible to little old me in San Francisco. I can call him and be like, hey, and we'll just chat for an hour. And he
Wow.
gave me the most, and he's not like that just with me. He's just that guy. He's amazing. And he
Yeah.
gave me this chat. And we were talking about this, that, and the other thing. And he goes, Chasta, none of it matters because at the end of the day, all you have to worry about is deserving to win. And when he said that, I was like, preach. It doesn't matter what people think about you or what ratings can be, or if you're putting out the absolute best that you have in your body, your team's doing the absolute best that they can, then you deserve to win and things will catch up to you. You
Yeah.
know, and you can feel proud of it every day what you put out in the world, the work that you put out in the world. That meant so much to me. I kid you not. For my staff at the Bone, I'm printing it out like a locker room and I'm going to hang it on the door
Oh,
and I'm going to make everyone jump up and hit it as they walk in and out of the
I love that. See, you're such the cheerleader. I've been told I'm the cheerleader at Odyssey. We just love to pump our team up, don't we?
That's why you
So,
and I vibe so quickly, I think.
so there's a balance with that too, though. It's like, what I'm hearing when you say that and when you were told that is you definitely need to keep an eye out for things like ratings when you're
Sure,
working in radio
you have to.
because that's what you have to part of what you strive for. But at the same time, if you know you gave it your all,
Yeah.
someone else just did better or budget came down. I tell you,
Mhm,
who that's where you can't take it personal. And it's taken me a while to get to that point. I mean, I worked the job that I got laid off of. The
mhm,
reason it was so devastating for me was I was in management. I
mhm.
was part of a team that we won because it's part of, I worked for a plant that had 43 plants across the US.
Okay.
We got plant of the year, which meant huge bonus. We got gold rings. Like it was a fucking thing.
Wow.
Right? I was on the team where it was called there's this horrible book called The Lean Six Sigma, which teaches you how to get more out of less employees. I'm
Oh,
naive. I don't realize what all this is, but I'm trying to elevate my knowledge and my experience. So I'm on the team. I'm on this team. And then I was the third wave of let go
wow.
because where my position was, they just put my work at the district manager level, got rid of us on our level. And it
Ugh.
was, and like I said, I just came from a number one plant,
Mhm.
scored high on our audit, everything. And that didn't matter because their bottom line needed to be where it needed to be. Sometimes when you're really high up, you're the first to get chopped down.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
And that was a lesson. And so you take that with you. And this is why I've learned to not take it personal. If unless I'm owning my own business,
Mhm.
I am someone else's responsibility to make them money. And the reward is, here is your salary.
That's exactly. Yeah. No, you're
That's
right.
it. So you
Yeah.
can't go around going, I do this and I'm bad and I'm great.
Yeah.
Now,
But guess what? If somebody decides they're not really a fan of yours and they don't dig you could be out next
you could
month
be
and
out.
he'll replace
And you
you.
can't take that personal. Just take what you learned and go apply it elsewhere.
That's exactly it. It's just the game we all signed up for. Like it's
Yeah.
a wild freaking game.
It is such a game.
But it is the industry that is radio and television. It's all the same, and it's opinion based, and it's crazy. And I won't even get into some of the craziness that is ratings because it's an interesting math science. But whatever.
And the way that they get them, right? It's such
wild.
Bolshevik. I'm like, are we still doing this thing where we catch ratings that we created in the 40s and we haven't upgraded that since?
It's
like
wild.
It's
like,
dumb.
Yeah.
I'm so convinced it's rigged. There's your conspiracy theory. I am so convinced. There's no way you can't rig something that stupid.
It is a crazy system. And so that's where the conversation went. It's like, yes, you have to pay attention to ratings because this is the industry that's how the industry sells, right? That's how it all works. This is what we have to deal with. But you can get lost in it if you want to, and you can become obsessive, and then it stifles creativity and it brings you down or brings you up too high to be too proud of yourself, all these things. So you you deserve it.
There's one more question before I get to the two final questions because we'll wrap this up. We're like at 40 minutes. We're doing.
Oh my God,
good.
are we really? I'm sorry.
So, how have you remained creative after all these years?
Because I just truly, like I said earlier, radio is my love affair. There's nothing better than being on a microphone live on a show and being creative and goofy, and it's improv, right? Like, especially on the morning show with Lamont Tonelli, every moment is improv. We open the mics and God knows what's going to, what one of us is going to say. And then we just have to roll with it, right? The first rule of improv is yes. And so you just go with it, and it's so fun, and it just gets in your blood. And there's nothing better than having this great break, whether it's on a morning show with multiple people or even on your own. I mean, if I have a great post on the air, if I'm ramping up into a song and it's fire, I will literally, today this happened, throw off my headphones and like, yeah, I have like the bass player stank face, right? Like that, it's that passion. It's that passion for radio and everything that I do. I just love it. It's just in my blood.
I love that. All right. So what was the question you always ask other people that I wanted to ask you about music?
Yeah. So I always, in my interviews, my favorite movie of all time is Almost Famous. Great movie. Like for so many reasons. But the last frame of the movie is the journalist is finally asking the question, what do you love about music? So I always ask that. And the same thing happens every time. There's this gigantic pause. And there's because it sounds like such a simple question, right? But it's not. It's actually very deep. And I've only been asked it once, actually. So are you asking me?
I'm asking you, what do you love about music?
So the truth is, and I've thought a lot about it since I do ask it so much, is it's a two-part answer. Number one, I feel like it's the rhythm of our souls. Your heartbeat is what pushes the blood into your body, and that is a rhythm. I'm married to a drummer, and I've always been fascinated with drumming. I'm from Oklahoma, Native American space, so I grew up around that music a lot from my family and friends. So I've always been really keen on drums, and when you hear a heartbeat, that's what it is. And to me, that shows that the lifeblood force in a body is musical. So that's number one. But number two is it's the universal language. I may disagree. I may be in a room full of 20,000 people and half of them may have completely opposite politics than me. And they may agree with a million things I don't agree with. But in that moment, none of it matters. And we're all focused on this thing that binds us. And it's that music, whether it's instrumental. I love a lot of instrumental music from soundtracks and whatnot that moves you even without words, that can bring you to tears without words. It's just, it's an entity. There's nothing like music.
I agree. Everything you said, which is why I ended up working in this industry. Music on like the megahertz level, it's like certain frequencies are actually healing for the soul. I'll never forget the first time I heard the band The Who, HU. They were booked at Aftershock. Were you there that year? Was it
I haven't missed
2000?
I've only missed one Aftershock. That's when I was pregnant.
Was that 2019?
It's 2015.
Okay, no, duh, because he's 6. So
Yeah.
it was 2019 was the same year they had Baby Metal.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm in the media tent, and all of a sudden I can feel it because little known fact about me is I'm also a Reiki practitioner.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. Oh my
Yeah.
God. You and I.
See? And so people will gravitate towards me, not know it's because I put out these vibes that are healing. I've had to learn to kind of curb them so I'm not just healing the world like all the time. So I'm in the media tent, and it's the backstage at the opposite end of Discovery Park. And I hear this, oh, and I'm like, what is what?
Your whole body's vibrating.
It does. So me and my friend, my assistant, we go all the way back there, and the closer you get, the more you feel it because it's the Mongolian rock band.
Yep.
HU.
Yep.
And they're doing sound vibrations with their vocal cords. They're also playing on traditional the instruments along with rock instruments. And whether the crowd knew it or not, they were being vibrated at such a level. And these men speak zero English. When they were in the media tent, they had their interpreter.
Yeah.
The greatest guys. And I just thought, oh my Lanta, I'm just forever fans of these men. I'm just going to follow everything they do. And it was right there is what music does. It's the soundtrack of our lives. When we think of a memory of anything in our past, usually a song, a decade or whatever is tied to it.
Oh, absolutely.
We watch our movies, our favorite scenes, whether we realize it or not, there's going to be music behind it supporting that favorite scene in the movie.
You want to hear something crazy? The very first time I ever realized this, I was maybe 5 or 6, and I was scared of scary movies, but my dad loved them. And I'll never forget, I could paint a picture of where we were sitting in my house, what I was wearing. It was so real to me. He goes, baby, just turn down the music. And when I put mute on, all of a sudden I was like, I'm not scared anymore. And it just washed over me that like what I'm in touch with is that vibrational tone. It's that music that's setting the scene. It's setting the tone for me. That was making me feel that vibration in my body. As soon as it was on mute, I could watch anything. It didn't bother me at all. And since that moment, I was like, wow, I am really touched with music. And it's bizarre to me that people walk this earth that are like, I don't know, what music, whatever. I can't be friends with people like that because I just don't get it.
There's no connection there. You're like, oh,
how do you?
I know exactly what you're missing in life, and I feel for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to start a GoFundMe to help you find your frequency. Should that be like a little indie film? I'm going to help you find your frequency.
Seriously, though, it's true. I mean, there'll be moments in songs because I'm not a musician, but my husband is a phenomenal musician. So I'll play something for him and I'll be like, what's that drop? Like, what's that note? Because that note gives me the tingles. What is that? And he'll be like, oh, that's blah, 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 blah. But it is. Yeah.
And then, so real quick, DP, thank you.
Hi, DP.
For the great discussion and then bringing up, scary movies. This is me at scary movies. Thumbs in the ears and a little shield.
Yeah.
That's how I can't do. I just scary. I can't do scary movies. I just can't. So then last question, because I think this is important and anyone still watching, if you're in any kind of industry, I want to ask you, how many interviews, not counting this one, have you had done about you?
Not a lot. Not a lot, actually. I would say this, oh gosh, in 21 years, a handful.
Yeah.
I'm interviewing almost every day, definitely several times a week I'm talking to, but it's never about me, which is totally fine. And it's sometimes you're like a little uncomfortable. I'm much more of a conversationalist versus like a typical interview. And you were fantastic, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
This was great for me.
Well, and it's the advice that I give everyone because I have a few and I work on more of them. It's so important for us building our brands, building who we are, to make sure that there's interviews out there consistently about us to get us out there.
Yeah, I'm not good at that. I need to be better.
I need you to be better at that.
I will work on that.
So I'm so glad we're doing this together because you really need that. You just do. It's like, especially for what you do and as amazing as you are, you're touching lives without even knowing it, Chasta. You are touching lives and it won't matter their gender or their age. It's like, you've got this energy. You have this drive. You have these accomplishments. You have this just amazing confidence without being stuck up.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Which I really love about you. And I'm hoping those watching this and after when this posts that they love that about you too.
Thank you. I hope
The
so.
he
Thank you.
Okay, wait, what was that? DP
Uh,
again. The hee haw Damon music gets me. The what? Damon? The hee haw Damon? What? Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I know exactly what you're saying. You
Okay, I
know
was like,
what? Next time you watch a scary movie, just do DP and I a solid and mute it and see how long you last to the scene. You'll be tougher than you think.
you'll be so much tougher. The music is what gets you every time.
It's true.
Well, I really loved this time. Thank you
I
so
did.
much for joining me on this. Girl, we need to do more together.
I would love it. I am here to help in any way I can,
Well,
especially
not even
going
just
back.
help. We just need to do more together.
Oh yeah,
Like,
no, we definitely do. Yes,
yes.
that is for sure. But anything I can do to be helpful too, especially going back to the local scene in Sacramento, I would love to talk with you about what we could do. To
Oh,
just help
yeah.
musicians across Northern California. That would be really
Agreed. That's something we can definitely talk off camera because that was the one thing I got into because I've hosted events. I have booked entire lineups at local venues. It's like it's the whole getting artists to swap. So it's like
yeah.
go with the band where you can be on their bill in their city and vice versa, that kind of thing, right?
Right. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah.
So
So
speaking of
we'll
which,
talk.
I don't want to forget to mention we do have the She Rocks Awards coming up in like 10 weeks from today,
Yeah.
happening during the NAMM show, which this year it's April. They're hoping by 2024 it'll be back in January. It's down in Anaheim. And so there's the link there, thewomen.com or sherocksawards.com because tickets are still for sale. And we're looking for volunteers. And it's our 11th year, which
That's
is just
incredible.
blows my mind. I can't
Yeah,
believe it started as a breakfast at NAMM at 2013, and it's now this huge thing.
that's
It's just
amazing.
and all women driven. Like sound is done by soundgirls.org. Like everything we do it from beginning to end in inception, it's all women driven, which I love. And it's important because we rarely see it.
Oh yeah, we absolutely rarely see it.
And
And
it's
I just
giving
want to
that
say thank
platform.
you for doing all the work that you and your ladies do. I mean, it really is very important in our industry. So thank you for leading the charge.
Thank you for that.
Really.
This is Myki Angeline, host for the Women's International Music Network. You can enjoy this and all others on the website that I showed you. This one will be posted later. And like I always end every show, every day that you wake up, you determine how your day will go. Thank
Amen.
you for joining us.